Today's video, we're going to talk about using audience builders like Tunnl to build hyper-targeted audiences on and using Facebook ads to make your Facebook ads more profitable. Okay, so if you don't know anything about Facebook ads in the last 5 years, you ran them or longer than that, you know that it's not as good as it used to be. It used to be amazingly good, and that came down to the targeting that Facebook allowed their users to have to target their ads so they could find their exact customer and not just have to advertise to the world to find your customer, which creates tons of waste. In its wake, there's all these spring up audience builder companies that will allow you to have more targeting control on your ads by taking audiences that they have and importing them back into your Facebook ads account that make your Facebook ads profitable like they used to be or profitable again. There's a whole bunch of companies doing this now. Tunnl is just one that I've personally tested and I'm going to talk about in today's video. If you stay to the end of the video, I will talk about the case study where we use this particular program. So if you're contemplating using them, I'll talk about that, why you should do it. And or if you aren't using outside audiences and you want to make your Facebook ads more profitable, this is a great way to do it given, once you find out you have a good ad and a good offer on Facebook, you're pretty much done anymore because the targeting options are way more limited than they used to be. You can't target people on 20,000 different levels like you used to. So I'll talk about how to use these tools on this video as well as the methods to utilize the tools in order to make the money that you can make using these tools, if you will. I know it's a mouthful, but I'll go over basically how to make money using these audience builder tools and how to go about doing it. So with that said, before getting into the content, if you do not know who I am Corey Zyman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we get them a certain minimum lift in the profitability up front, basically in excess of the management fee. We are the only agency out there doing anything like this, which should tell you something about the quality of the information that I'm sharing with you in this video. So with that said, getting into the content. Now, there are lots of newer companies springing up online allowing you to add extra targetable audiences on Facebook ads. That's what I call these audience builder companies or software, if you want to call them that. If you use Tunnl, Tunnl just is one of them. Another one is LiveRamp. I've talked about them in earlier videos specifically, where you are basically the data. Facebook had all these audiences that you could target before that were super specific, like somebody who's taken out a credit card and the last 6 months and has a $30,000 credit limit or something like that. You could do crazy targeting like that. These third-party companies are doing and performing surveys in the public to find what people have or get access to third-party data. And they compile these audiences, which once you have an email address of an individual, you can import that email address or phone number to Facebook and then target that person through and on Facebook. So Facebook could get a lot more profitable because you could use these third parties which have more information about Facebook users than Facebook has, or leads you on to letting you have, or lets you have access to. Facebook about 4 years ago went through the big privacy debacle and they got rid of all the targeting options because they were getting in trouble for allowing you to target people on such a hyper-targeted level, where these companies like Tunnl are kind of bridging the gap as to what you could do before you could do it again. You could technically use these companies like Tunnl, these audience builder companies as they call it, to advertise on other networks too though. Not only just Facebook, Instagram, Google, if you want to run hyper-targeted display campaigns, which Google gives you pretty good options to target who you want to target there. So it's not as useful there. Programmatic ad networks where you can target people using banner ads across the web, which you normally could do through Google, but without the use of Google directly. You also can, on OTT ad networks, you could target people through streaming TV networks like Roku, Hulu, and any device that allows you to stream TV through the internet. Outside box that connects to the internet. So, which is called OTT advertising. You can also target people on these networks using outside audiences now, which makes them a lot more powerful than what they have already. Because like for OTT ad targeting, you can use Mountain, which is the big one that our company uses when a client wants to target people on OTT. But they're only limited by the audiences there. And so it's the same thing with Facebook. You're limited by who you can target, and that may just make a campaign successful. Whereas if you could target somebody based upon their political affiliation, because that's what you really need to make the campaign successful enough, then you could use these outside audience builder tools like Tunnl to do that. And really at the end of the day, it's when you're trying to run ads outside of search engines, you're trying to interrupt people and sell them something. Of course, the offer is the biggest thing. But the more people that your ad has to show to find a buyer, the less profitable your campaigns are, which is called waste circulation, as we call it in the marketing space. The click-through rate of your ad, effectively, if that goes down, your cost per click goes up. With that said, so you ultimately are always trying to figure out how to micro-target or hyper-target who you want to target, because that's only going to make your campaign more successful. If you're selling something where 1% of the market or the general population will buy, you don't need these outside targeting networks. You just run your ad and it's targeted enough. But if you're targeting something that, let's say, 1,000 people out of 300 million people are actually going to buy, and your average ticket size is $100,000, and so only having 1,000 customers would be, it's enough. Running your campaign to the whole country to find the 1,000 is ridiculously wasteful and probably will make your campaign unsuccessful, even though you'll make so much from the 1,000 that wants to buy. Ultimately, there's a point in which you narrow your targeting enough where your campaign becomes successful, and that may be able to be done through the default targeting options on these ad platforms, or maybe you need outside help through these audience builders. This has happened as Facebook's targeting options and lookalike algorithm is not what it used to be. So these, for the most part, these audience builder companies like Tunnl are helping people make Facebook ads profitable like they used to be. Not just with the targeting options being, they give you more targeting options. The lookalikes algorithm is a lot better too, because it used to be on Facebook, you could target people with using their lookalikes matching tool, and then with the data that they would get from Apple about what people are typing in and talking about, you could target people on an extremely detailed level. Well, you don't have that anymore with the new privacy laws, restrictions that, Apple put into place and so forth. So with that said, ultimately, a lot of campaigns just fell apart once all those restrictions came in place to make things more private, where they increased user privacy on Facebook. So you got to use these tools in many occasions now just to get your ad campaign to be profitable. With that said, on these audience builders are cool because you could target people really specifically, just like you could on Facebook back in the good old days. You could target people based upon the publications they read or watch, what they likely, how they vote, past purchases, their life goals, their interests, and more. Those being the main ones. Ultimately, if you don't know, if you're just starting out as a company and you're not sure who to market to online, let's say you do have some customers already, then you do what we do and you go ahead and you go to a company like Axicom and you take your customer list to them, and they'll tell you of the 40,000 possible traits that they track on the US population or abroad, which ones are the most common on the 1,000 plus customer list that you give them. And you find out, okay, for some reason, the people that buy, they are 10 times more likely to be a beer drinker and go to church and have children. And so when you combine those three things, which are not that good by itself, when you combine them together in a list and to where a person has to be all of the above, it takes a list of 300 million people that you could potentially target down to a list of 100,000. It makes a big difference in your profitability already right then and there. You go ahead and you get that data, then you go to your audience builder companies like the Tunnls, like the Live Ramps out there that allow you to target people on this kind of level, to utilize that data, and then you put your audiences together, you import into your ad account, and then boom, your ads are profitable. And that's a really good way to get Facebook ads to work nowadays, at least for smaller niches. Again, if you're selling, socks, everybody buys socks. You don't need to do this crap. If you're targeting people who are buying solar installation tools, your customer base is really tiny, right? Solar installers. Well, there's 10,000 companies that do it, and you need the 10,000 only. So in this situation, this is perfect for that type of thing when you're going to advertise on Facebook to get to the heart of who actually buys. Again, if you narrow your targeting enough, the ads are always going to be profitable. The question is, how are you going to do it, and how far do you have to narrow? Because it's just like if you sold tennis rackets and you could get in front of all the people that play tennis at least once a week on Facebook, your campaign's going to be successful because it has the exact people that buy tennis rackets already. But how do you do that with the default targeting options? You can't do it. These other companies is where they fill in the gaps, so to say. With that said, just so that you know, I've got other videos on this channel about LiveRamp, how you can use them, which is another audience builder company. It's bigger one. And if you spend a lot of money already on ad spend, that's the one that I would recommend going to because it's the big boy with the most data, the most accurate data, the most audiences. They just have a minimum spend with them. So basically, if you're not spending at least 10 grand a month, it won't work with them because there's fees to access the platform. But these other companies like Tunnl, they don't have these big, huge access minimum fees of, they don't charge you to access the platform directly. You have to spend I'm going to talk about how these platforms get paid, but they get paid based upon you using the list. You use the list and then the ad spend that you have, they take a percentage of the ad spend. But you have to spend so much money with LiveRamp in order for them to even allow you to access the platform. There's minimums. So anyway, with that said, recommend checking my videos out about LiveRamp specifically. You can search for it in the search bar on my channel homepage. But along with that, you should just check out my other videos about Facebook in general. The offer is everything. A lot of people don't recognize how to make a good Facebook ad that works nowadays. They don't understand user-generated content ads. Coming out with solid offers. You should watch my other videos on this channel if you're serious about making money with Facebook ads because that is above the targeting. You can have the best ad with shitty targeting and still make money many times, but great targeting with a shitty ad will never work. And then with that, you should subscribe to the channel because I got tons of other information on this channel about all this stuff that nobody else is talking about that frankly I know because I'm in the industry doing work on accounts 40 hours a week. There's a lot of people that have YouTube channels here that just talk about ads. They don't run any ads. They run an agency. They don't run any ads. They're selling courses. They don't run any ads. And therefore, they don't know anything. They're just speculating. So if you're going to pay attention to anything, you're going to start with the information here. And so you should subscribe. You should also check out my blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog as well, because it has all the strategies we're using to guarantee results for our clients with screenshots, with the step-by-steps. I write that myself. You should check that out as well. And for that matter, by the way, if you have any questions about anything I'm covering here today, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, usually within 24 hours time. But getting back to the topic at hand here. So ultimately what you do, whether you use LiveRamp, there's another one that's out there is Apple Cart that has specialized audiences. You use Tunnl. You go and find a platform that works for you and has the audiences you need. So, ultimately, if you go to Axicom and find out the traits that make your customers unique, like I mentioned earlier, go shop around. Go sign up and get demos from 10, 20 of different of these companies, because there's a bunch out there now, because this is a hot new trend, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger all the time, because people make money with it, they're going to talk, and there's more, because it's getting bigger, there's more competitors coming in. But, for instance, Apple Cart specializes in targeting, have political audiences, and then decision makers, 1,000 companies. And just so there's a company out there that probably has the audience that you need. So, because obviously if you need to target Fortune 500 CEOs, you'd be dumb to run a Facebook ad to everybody, right? Well, there's a company that has that audience that you could target. So shop around until you find something that you want. But ultimately, it all works on, they show you the data. You don't pay for the data outright up front. You pay for the data because they'll help you import it into your Facebook account or Facebook/Instagram ads manager and your OTT account or pragmatic ad network that you want to advertise with. And then they charge you a percentage of the spend most of the time. 10% of spend is about what you're going to pay. So if you spend $10,000 a month on ads using their audiences, they're going to charge you $1,000 for the accessing the data list, which you may say 10%. Because ad agencies charge 10%, they got to do all this freaking work, managing the ads, coming up with the ads and stuff. That sounds like a really high proportionally, like it shouldn't cost that much. You have to put it into perspective. And when it comes to marketing, you get what you pay for. I mean, there are plenty of stuff that is expensive in the marketing world that's not worth it, but cheap shit is fundamentally almost completely garbage. Stuff that makes money in marketing, if it's worth anything, they're charging a lot of money for it because they can. These audiences, in order to get the data, they have to survey a lot of people. That costs a load of money to do that. If you pay a little bit of money, you get what you pay for. Everybody's tempted in marketing to just go for the cheapest option when they don't know anything about marketing. And then they whine and cry when it doesn't work. You have to think about this logically. How are these companies going to make money when they only charge you 1% of your ad spend or whatever to access the data? It doesn't make any sense. Why? You have to think about, okay, how do they make money? Okay, that makes sense. The pricing they're charging makes sense. But people just look at the price and they believe what they want to believe, which is how they get scammed. Because there's half of the marketing space is filled with people that No, people just want a cheap price and they're not going to overthink it, and they'll sell you with a bow on it. Because it's cheap, you'll buy it, and that's what they live on. That's their bread and butter. So you have to pay attention to what you're doing. 10% of spend is worth it if the audience works. Yes, it's a lot of money every month, but if it works ultimately. People, generally speaking, seem to value the ad spend and spending on that, but not making the ad spend more efficient. Not paying for audiences, not paying for management companies, and they try to cheap on all this other stuff. When really, half of the money of what you spend, or more even, we'll say, but conservatively, half of what you spend on your ad spend should be going to just make the ad spend work, at least when you're talking about non-search engine ads. Because it takes a lot of work and effort to come up with new offers and new ads and studying the data and coming up with new targeting options and split testing, at least until you're spending at least $50,000 a month or more. Then it can start to go below that. But when you're just starting out, people say, oh, I can't pay you half of what I'm paying already for ad spend. That's ridiculous. And that's really just dumb, because anybody who knows what they're doing aren't going to be charging you $500 a month to make you a fortune with your ads. If they were that good and it worked, they'd do it themselves, they'd do what you're doing, and they'd make all the money for themselves. So as far as getting into the case study here, I have this case study where we use specifically Tunnl. As I mentioned, I would go over here, would talk about my experience with them and the type of results we had, and then just explain how this basically works. But before I do, ultimately, going back to my little rant that I had, you should spend as much on your planning as you do on your ad spend, at least when you're starting out, until you get your spend ramped up to 5 figures a month or around there, mid 5 figures. Before you even run any ads, the more planning you do, the better off you are. A lot of people just rush into it and they say, oh, I just want to get it started. And then, oh, I just want to see how much money I can make. And then they do it, and then they waste a bunch of money, and they're like, oh, that sucks. Oh, it's a scam. The ad campaigns that we run at our agency that are successful have loads of planning and time in just getting the initial setup right. With that said, asking somebody who's ran hundreds of ads is worth every penny before you set up your campaign, so you don't end up blowing tons of money just to see what would happen. And if you're interested in that, you can reach out to me at my firm at guaranteedppc.com. Along with that, I'll promise you a certain return on your investment as well. That is, if we actually run your ads for you, we're not going to charge a fee until we get you a certain minimum lift in your sales and profits on your ads, or to a certain minimum benchmark. If you're interested in that, reach out to me at my firm at guaranteedppc.com. We also have ad templates available. We've worked in over 100 different niche markets out there. And with that, if we've already worked in your niche market already, we could sell you the winning ad templates, landing page templates, all of it that works for your niche market already. And we can tell you the results you're going to get with it up front before you bought the template. This is much cheaper and much easier to use our template if we've worked in your market before in a different city or country than it is doing the stuff yourself. Or you can also reach out to me at my firm at guaranteedppc.com if you're interested in that. With that said, getting into the case study. So this was a beverage company that we dealt with. And ultimately, I would recommend this to any company, a clothing company, beverage company out there. Your best bet in that situation is to target people who already buy from your competitors already, okay? Instead of targeting everybody. Yes, you can convince some people to start drinking your apple cider beer if they don't drink beer, but that's a complete waste of money and just basically in general not going to be profitable to do. It's too hard to change consumer behavior. Most of the money that we make at our firm is just getting people already in market for something and then just tipping them over the edge, or getting in front of people who buy from our competitors already if people buy regularly in that market. In the beverage market, targeting people that drink apple cider beer, you can't do that through Facebook. You can do it somewhat through YouTube ads. You can do it somewhat through Google display ads. But on these other platforms, you can't really do it. And so your best bet is to use one of these audience builder systems, companies, to find people that already drink that specific drink already and then just market to them your drink. It's not that hard to get them to try your drink if they already like apple cider beer. That's the best bet for you to have, and it's completely worth the 10% of ad spend that they're going to charge you to access their data. Unfortunately, you're not going to get data that's that drilled down most of the time. You could get people who drink beer and then at least try to get them to drink your apple cider beer, which is a hell of a lot better than marketing to everybody. Because, in the alcohol space, all the money's made on the alcoholics that drink every day. Well, how do you find 1% of the people that are alcoholics and just market to them? Well, one of the things you do is you target people that already have an interest in drinking already, and then drink and market to them. And ideally, if you sell wine, market to the people who have interest in wine, not beer. Or if it's beer, just specifically beer. Because then you're getting not just 1% of the population, but the 0.1% that's the best one to target. Avid wine drinkers that regularly drink wine. So in this particular case, it was a beverage company. I can't mention specifically which company it is. What we did was, and it was a starting company. I don't usually work with huge brands because those type of companies usually have internal PPC department or ad management departments, and they work with huge agencies. We're not a huge agency. But with this company, it was a startup company. They had like gas stations and stores within the state that they were in, that they were selling the product already. So it was really starting to get popular. So what we did was we just targeted people within that state. That we also targeted people who were specifically interested in that beverage category, so that we could actually get in front of the people who normally would buy that product anyway, buy from the competitor, and just market to them, okay? And specifically to drive in-store sales, which if you were that type of company, what you do is you just simply look at your sales before introducing a marketing campaign at those stores and then directly after it, 90 days after, which is exactly what we did in this case. What we did was our task was to take the advertising funds they already had, reallocate them so that they're more spent better. And my suggestion was to target these audiences of people who are already, buy beer on a regular basis, which it wasn't exactly beer, but specifically using these audience builder tools, and specifically Tunnl in this case, to target them exclusively in the geographic area that we're in, to just hammer them with our ads. Do a whole series of ads about how great our, just using it as a placeholder, our apple cider beer is, how good it is, how popular it is in Iowa, just to give you an example state, and how everybody's drinking it now, and make it look like it's more popular than it is, basically, which is what you want to do. When you're talking about social media ads, you want to show people that other people are using it. That's the best way to sell. We also ran some banner ads as well in the Pragmatic Ad Network to these same people, by the way. We're starting to get into running OTT, but we didn't do this at the time that I ran this case study. We got a 49% increase in same-store sales 90 days after running this campaign. So this company had quite a bit of ad money that they were just throwing away on Facebook ads, marketing to just everybody, which is almost complete waste of money. When we reallocated it to targeting these specific audiences that were set up through Tunnl, it completely changed how much sales that they were able to get. So they basically were able to get to the audience that they needed to get to and not spend 90% of their money on people that are never going to buy their product no matter how good it looks. And that's a great example of a type of a market where these audiences are going to help you make a lot more money, or actually make a profit from your ads at the end of the day. If you're not sure what to do, you can always reach out to my firm and get a coaching session from myself. In a 30-minute coaching session, I can ask you a bunch of questions, let you know what the best thing to do is, and/or figure out where your bottleneck is stopping you from your ads are working. If it's not using these audiences, what else you can do. Every person that's been getting coaching from myself that reached out from the channel since I started offering it about a year ago has come back for more coaching and/or said that they're going to come back for more coaching because it's good. Anyway, if you're interested in that, you can let me know. Reach out to me at my site at guaranteedppc.com. I'll wrap everything up with that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Remember when I said Facebook ads was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.